on the Dan Patrick Show, Steve Keim, who LaVar Arrington, who's going to be doing draft night coverage here on Fox Sports Radio with coming up tomorrow night. He's the former GM of the Arizona Cardinals, and the discussion was why they took Kyler Murray, number 1 overall a few years ago, as opposed to Nick Bosa. There was a story that came out. Nick Bosa told the Cardinals that if you draft, quote, that little guy, I'm going to haunt you for the rest of his career.
Oh, my gosh.
So something along those lines. So with that being said, Steve Keim talked to Dan Patrick about the decision. Here's how it sounded.
If I gave you a do-over.
Well, Kyler Murray got me an extension. Nick Bosa probably would have got me fired.
Really?
Well, I mean, your quarterback position is the guy who can propel your team the quickest.
Yeah, but
and he did that.
Okay.
Could Nick Bosa have got us to an 11-win team that year 2 years ago?
Now, some people have taken some shots at Steve Keim with that's exactly why he's not there anymore. But was anything that he said incorrect?
No.
They did the right thing. They took the quarterback, and everybody's job was on the line, and he's right. He did get him an extension, and it did work early on with Kyler Murray. Last year was a disaster.
They were trending in the right direction, though.
Yes.
I mean, maybe people have short memories, but at one point, I mean, they were like coming into the season favorite to not only win their division, but the challenge for being in the Super Bowl out of the NFC. So it just kind of fell off of a cliff very quickly, and I think that's what people really have focused in on and what they remember. But, I mean, Keim I thought they did a fine job of building that roster up. At one point, they had a ton of elites scattered across that roster. So, and I don't think anyone would have said that Kyler Murray was a bad choice. I don't know why it would even be framed in a way like he was a miss of a pick. He was not a miss of a pick.
No. I mean, look, he got injured last year. There's so many other things that played into the lack of success for Arizona last year. You know, they never really replaced what they lost in Chandler Jones as far as an edge rusher. Hopkins missed the first 6 games. He's arguably your best player on your roster, and he's not there. That is huge in regards to the impact of, scoring points, moving the football, making plays. Murray ends up getting hurt. I think if you want to be critical about Steve Keim, you'd be critical about the lack of investment in the offensive line. They really didn't draft many offensive linemen over his time there, and I think when you look at what's going to happen tomorrow night, you're going to see a run on offensive linemen, especially the top-tier guys, and also by teams that have a quarterback. That was not how Steve Keim operated during his time as general manager of the Arizona Cardinals. They went a different route with how they went about trying to supply them with talent and ability of the players that they needed. So maybe that's one point to be critical. But look, Steve Keim wasn't being critical of Nick Bosa. I mean, he really wasn't. He's just making the point that a quarterback can help change the course of your franchise faster than anyone else. I'll give you another example. 2017, who was the first overall pick in that draft?
Why am I blanking on this? Because Trubisky went 2, and number 1 was
how about this? Who had the first?
Myles Garrett.
Myles Garrett.
Yeah.
What was the record of the Browns in 2017?
It wasn't good.
Were they 2 wins?
0-16.
Oh, Jesus.
Oh,
who was the first overall pick in 2018?
2018, that would be Baker Mayfield.
Okay. What was the record of the Browns in 2018?
It wasn't good.
What were they, 7 wins? 7 wins?
7, 8, and 1.
Yeah.
Then it was a little bit decent after that, right? They had a decent year.
Well, yeah. Then they started to build, but it kind of proved Steve Keim's point, right?
He would have lost his job over that 2-year period.
Well, not so much that. It's the point that a quarterback's going to come in and make the greatest impact right away on your team to help you. And that's what Kyler Murray did in helping to build that franchise up, again, to be a playoff team in year 3. And that's when they all got extensions. Kyler did, Steve Keim did, obviously Cliff Kingsbury did. I kind of look at Michael Bidwell pulling the plug on all that as premature. And it was a poor decision in 2 ways. Either you should have never given them all an extension in the first place, or you should have given them another year to see this thing through, make some changes, and try to get back on course of where they were and take into account all the issues that team faced. from injuries up front on the offensive line, maybe some of the mistakes they made in not doing more to protect Kyler Murray, not having your best player for 6 games, figuring out how to get an edge rush to help get you more pressure, all those things. So one way or another, Michael Bidwell made either a mistake in giving the extension or a mistake in not allowing them to see that through once you did give them the extension. But the point still stands. Like, you can use other teams like the Browns as an example of that. Myles Garrett, who's arguably one of the best edge rushers, right? I think you'd put him up there as top 3 in the league. It still doesn't have as much of an impact as a quarterback who Baker Mayfield was almost a 500 quarterback on a team that was a no-win team the year before.
And also, I think that history is going to be a lot kinder to Steve Keim and to Cliff Kingsbury and maybe even Kyler Murray, because the more stuff that comes out of Arizona, the more you realize, that's kind of a fiasco going on there with Bidwell as the owner and all the other reports that are coming out from the front office.
Interesting.
So, and to your point on drafting high in the draft, like, the one thing that I always think about, John Elway, outside of Peyton Manning, he always gets criticized for his inability to identify the quarterback position and make the change, and the Brock Osweiler experiment and all the Paxton Lynch. Like, everybody criticizes him for that. Never mind the fact that he drafted Von Miller. Like, Von Miller, who's a first-ballot Hall of Famer, was the MVP of the Super Bowl they won while John Elway was an exec there in Denver. But because of the quarterback position and him not being able to draft the right guy, people still focus on that and completely forget that Von Miller was his first ever pick there. So
I think that's attached
for John.
Pat. This one's for Pat.
This one's for Pat.
I think it's attached to him because he was such a legendary quarterback, though. You know, and like, everyone assumes that, you should be able to figure this out. You're a Hall of Famer. You're one of the greatest ever, and it's like, well, it's not that easy, and you don't always have everything set up and the right situation and circumstance to allow some of the guys to be successful. Like, not everyone's John Elway walking into the NFL. Some guys need to have the right situation and circumstance in order to succeed. In fact, I would venture to say 95%.
Yeah, I was about to say that's a high percentage
of players need that.
Yeah, it's a high percentage.
I mean,
everybody needs
honestly,
development,
and that's not just like the NFL. That's like business. That's everywhere. Like, we're not all that different. Like, our DNA is all the same, and like our the way we think, the things we do. Like, how many times have we said things that probably someone else had said somewhere else? But we have a platform where maybe it gets picked up or carried more. Yeah. Or maybe we do we have a different spin or a better story that helps people relate to it, so they hear what we're saying, but they don't hear what someone else is saying. Like, it happens all the time. People come up with an invention. Yes, someone else had that first. Guess what? They couldn't figure out how to get it to market. They couldn't figure out how to get it into Walmart stores and then be uber successful and move on with it. Sometimes it's just being lucky or unlucky. I mean, there's so much stuff to it, and obviously a lot played into Steve Keim not working out in Arizona. I'll go this far in saying this. I obviously didn't like the fact that they drafted Josh Rosen 10 overall and then just moved on after a year. Not only to him, but also Kevin Wilkes. I thought he got a raw deal there.
Steve Wilkes,
excuse me. But if you look at, like, the fact that they had a plan, they went with the plan, it was working for 3 years until things kind of started to teeter. It takes a lot of confidence and really, I mean, a lot of balls to do what he did.
Yeah.
To be able to then go with the number 1 overall pick, go right back to the draft, and bring in a coach that's a head coach that you feel like is better suited for him to be able to succeed. And it was working until this past year when everything got derailed.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you this. Steve Keim, now he's part of the family. And he's going to be part of the family, and he's going to be sitting side by side next to LaVar Arrington. And you're probably asking, well, why is that? Well, because it's Draft Night Live on Fox Sports Radio coming up tomorrow night. Be sure not to miss it. Thursday night, 8 Eastern time, throughout the first round of the draft. Insider Jay Glazer, again, former Cardinals GM Steve Keim, our very own Sticks, LaVar Arrington, and Big Noon Kickoffs. Rob Stone will have pick-by-pick predictions and reactions to every first-round pick. That's Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern time, throughout the first round of the draft, live on Fox Sports Radio and the iHeartRadio app.